Are you trying to come in?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You want to sit there?
Now.
The drills are what's called deceptively simple. So these drills, you swear you're going to know the answer, but you will not know the answer. No one ever has the answer. So please don't feel bad. Don't anyone feel embarrassed. You will not get these. I promise you. I'm not your friend in this thing. But it's done deliberately so because we have to shake your mind. So I have X amount of time to rip the hell out of people's entire cognitive structures and help them to build it anew.
All right, new video with my friend Dr. Herman and Steve. Herman, this is the third video I get from you in Chicago. You've been out for 4 years, almost traveling the world.
Yes.
And I get 3 videos in.
We gotta do this quick while I'm still here.
I don't know how long it's gonna be.
Yeah.
Tomorrow you might tell me I'm leaving.
Yeah,
we
never know when we're gonna bounce all over the world.
Exactly.
Yeah, which is a pretty cool life actually. I like
so
it.
actually, thank you today. You gave us, I guess, a sample of your program, Holistic Vision, and what is it called? What do you call it?
It's called Holistic Vision. So basically, Holistic Vision is what I teach. I teach different targets, multi-million-dollar companies, police, universities, doctors, engineers, underprivileged groups, many different targets. And it gives them 2 things. Number 1 is the highly complex problem solving, and number 2 is novel idea generation. Novel just meaning new, of course. And it teaches them that using only 2 concepts. Number 1 is psychological strategy, which is basically the component or the variable that breaks down your entire cognitive structure. So we're talking about taking your entire thinking foundation and ripping it out completely and building it anew. And the second principle, the second thing that I use is the system of interconnectivity. And the system of interconnectivity, as we saw here, is basically the system of interconnectedness that surrounds you, that is right in our face every day, hidden in plain sight. And these concepts, these principles, these universals, these foundations, whatever you want to call them, they hold the secret to the underlying cause of ideas, negative things, positive things, opportunities. So you could use those algorithms, those things, in different landscapes and come out and create what's called step change, tremendous change in any business, personal, or social arena.
Thanks for the overview. And as you were actually talking, I thought about a lot of different experiences in my own life, and maybe we'll get a little bit into that. Especially when you spoke about divorce, for example, the idea of divorce, not marriage divorce, as you explained.
Divorce just means separation.
Correct, yeah. And actually I remembered very specific experiences from my life where I used that without giving it, of course, any term.
Yeah.
But before I do that, let's also get to know Steve a little bit. So you also participated in the program, but just tell us about yourself.
Oh, about myself. Well, I run my own business, so Dr. Herman's program really opened my mind. The sample we got really opened my mind, so I've got stuff that I can apply my business. I'm retired Navy, so I wish I would have had this back then, especially when I had people under me. And I'm retired law enforcement also. It would have come in really handy then too, just to be able to look at different things and have a more open mindset.
Yeah.
So that, and I mean, I've known Dr. Herman for, wow, how long has it been?
Over 13 years.
Yeah,
15 or more.
15 or more years, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a long time.
Yeah.
So, and I've been with him as he's developed the program, and it's been a great journey.
Yeah, and a lot of thoughts have been racing through my mind really when I was listening to you, and it's hard to focus on, pick the ones that we're going to focus on in the few times that we have. So I think
This interview would be so long then.
yeah, it's going to be so long, or we're going to have multiple ones.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Hopefully we can. But I mean, let's maybe focus on some of the things that made me reflect on some of my own experiences. So the idea of divorce, I think, is very important. And I would just, if I may, relate one experience of how this changed my life forever. And I will talk about maybe the domain of the spirituality. And I thought about other things. I mean, when we were talking, I thought about things related to career also. So it really touched, many areas of my life that all these ideas relate to. It's not really focused on one area of your life. And when I remember, when you were talking about divorce, I remember that's what I exactly did. I think in my teens, I grew up in a majority Muslim society, conservative. That's all I knew, But then, at some point, I decided that I just felt uncomfortable, and I felt that I was very limited. Why am I believing this specifically? Why am I doing this, which your religion tells you to do? So what I did, I decided at one point that I'm gonna separate myself from my religion. But I also realized that it wasn't easy to do. It wasn't an overnight thing.
Yeah.
So first I made a decision, and then over maybe a year or two, I took steps to emotionally set myself free. And then eventually I kind of reverted over also a course of a few years. But what I would say is this experience completely changed my view, because now I was able to, I'm no longer seeing things from my perspective only. I can put myself in the place of a Christian, of a Buddhist, of anyone, even though I still believe in what I believe.
Right.
But at the same time, even though I believe in it, which is very interesting, because usually in faith, you either believe in what you believe or you don't.
Yeah, right.
So thanks to this divorce thing, I was able to believe what I believe, but at the same time, not completely believe in it, or not completely believe that I am on the truth.
Yeah.
I can look at someone who completely believes in something completely different, but still see the truth of what they see, things from their perspective as well.
Yes.
So in my experience, that completely changed my life and my mind. And I mean, I didn't apply to everything in my life, but I can see the power of this if you can do it in everything.
Right.
And I think this is one of the things that you've tried to achieve with your audience.
Yes.
Is to be, that's one of the things, not all of it, but
Of course.
yeah.
Yeah, the holistic vision, one of the core concepts of having holistic vision is if it is a part of your core self, it will bleed into every aspect of your life. So unfortunately, what you just said is true with most of the people who, well, I'm going to say everyone who tries to divorce themselves, whether they know the tool of divorcing or they call it something else, whatever. They only do it for this portion of their life or this portion of their life. With holistic vision, I'm really teaching whoever I'm teaching, if it's cops or single mothers or McDonald's workers, the target never matters. I'm really teaching them to make it a part of their core self, so it bleeds into every aspect. And actually, Steve has an example that he told me about recently, that he went to a class, we won't say the name of the entity, but he went to a class and he learned to see things from different aspects as well.
So it was the program that I went through. It allowed me, like with holistic vision, was okay. I'm here. I'm hearing everybody's side of the story. And I'm not focused like, okay, this is we have to do it my way. It was that. It's like, wait a minute. What did you just say? And what did you just say? All right. Now let me see what both of you are seeing, because I can't see it. So I step around. I look. And I'm, aha. And then we all like, okay. Now they're like, well, what did you see? And we all put it together, and you can see the whole sides of everything. And now that I've learned how to do that, I've been applying it in my personal life and my professional life, and that's how I've gotten where I am right now. I mean, I'm still building, but that's where I am now. 5 years ago, I wouldn't even be sitting here with you guys. I would have been like, yeah, okay, do your video, I'll be in the car.
Yeah. And that's, I wanted to ask him to speak about that explanation, because what both of you just said are very applicable in certain instances. So the people that do conduct the divorcing, like I said earlier, unfortunately, they're only versed in applying it here or here. It doesn't become a core part of their self. So if you take something that's so powerful and just inculcate it and really put it in your mind and in your heart and your entire being, you're going to see solutions to issues and negativities, and see new opportunities in your job, if you're raising your kids, in self-development, whatever it is, doesn't matter, on a grander scale that you couldn't even reach before. And that's what holistic vision does. It really teaches you the secret universal laws that are in this world, in business, in physics, in art, all these different things, and combines them and shows you how to take that principle and apply it in, you know, this problem at Starbucks if you're a barista, or this problem as a teacher, or this problem as a military officer if you're going in undercover into different tours, different operations, and using that and creating step change, tremendous change for whatever you need to do.
So I think one takeaway also, something that you mentioned, it's not about how much information you know. I think we can all learn. You can study in this field, in that field, but that's not really the key thing. What you need is a tool,
Yes.
right? You don't need to know this much information. You need to maybe find patterns or find, as you say, get to the foundation of things.
Yes, exactly.
And I think that's an important takeaway for anyone. It's not about how much you know. It's about, I don't know what to call it, but it's how you use the information, right? How do you get to the bottom of things?
For a simple, you know, if somebody's looking for a simple explanation, it's like working on a car, okay? Both of you could take the book, open it up, read it, you've got the tools in front of you, you can do it, because you have that tool. It says you need this tool for that, okay, I've got it, boom. It's a simple explanation. You know, you've got your tools, you use them. You don't need to be, oh, I'm a certified mechanic. Well, I'm not, but I can do the same thing that you're doing. I've got the book, I've got the information, I've got the tool.
And also one thing that you mentioned that kind of made me think is like one thing sometimes some people struggle with in their career, if even same with me, when you are interested in multiple things at the same time. One thing you said that's really interesting, in our society now we really favor specialty, someone who is very, you know, versed in one field and they know everything about it, so they are a specialist.
Yes.
We appreciate
Yeah.
those who are specialists in one thing. But you said something that's completely different. You said,
Right.
actually, the great minds, it's not about being special. You can be, right?
Yeah,
But
of course.
this is not really what makes you a great mind. You actually need to have a vision that spans different fields.
Yes.
And it was actually good to know, because sometimes I thought that those who are interested in many things are sometimes at a disadvantage in our society today.
Correct, yeah.
Because you need to be specialized in one particular field.
That's one of the biggest problems in this global society. It's completely wrong. One of the best ways to stifle a people is to say you need to be specific in your knowledge and your expertise. So get a bachelor's degree in computer science, get your master's in C programming computer science, get your PhD in applying C program to this problem in computer science. So drill down, narrow, be very specific in how you do your business, how you do your specialty, whatever. Yeah, that's good. You're going to be an expert and you can very well be a millionaire. That's fine, but you will never, no exception, no excuses, you will never be the level that you could be if you expand your mind and see things from different, seemingly unrelated landscapes and use those principles in different arenas. So for example, with me, I have 6 university degrees and a lot of them don't relate to each other. So for so many times, I would have to talk with career guidance counselors and teachers and friends and everything, and they say, why you have 6 degrees in all these different areas and everything? Just take one thing and specify. Well, when someone says that, I know immediately that their vision is limited. They're not seeing things all the way through. Because when you have holistic vision, it's not about, as you rightfully said, studying this subject, and just being a master in different subjects. That's impossible. You don't have enough years in your life to be that. What's important is whatever subjects you have as deep expertise, not being a dilettante or jack of all trades, that won't help you. You have to see the foundation tool, like you said, studying something and applying the algorithm that's beneath everything to different landscapes. So for example, Buckminster Fuller said, as I said in the program, if you want to teach people something new, don't bother trying to teach them. Give them a tool, the use of which allows them to come up with novel ideas and novel solutions. And that's what holistic vision is. It's not teaching you about physics, the laws of physics, the laws of art, the laws of all these different things. Yes, I do that, but more importantly, it's teaching you the foundation of looking at different fields and seeing the foundation, the lowest level possible of a problem, of a field, of a person, of yourself, and using that principle, that universal, that algorithm in different seemingly unrelated fields. So that is the power that you have. That's the power that I've been very fortunate to come across with all my different training, different degrees, over 35 years of studying different things, so I can apply it. And that is why I take holistic vision and I can train police and multi-million-dollar companies and consultants and engineers, single parents. I don't know their background. I don't give you the answers. That's impossible for me to give you the answer. I give you the tools so you can see the answer and create the step change that you need, the tremendous change.
And I don't think you're teaching something new per se, because something you mentioned is this is how the great minds of history were thinking.
Of course.
You asked us to each think of some of the greatest minds in history. We each came up with some names. Some names even came up with from different persons. So just it's not something new. It's not a new system.
Yeah.
Some people actually, whether they knew what it is or not, but they applied the same principles. And they were able to solve problems that no other person solved, and that's how they became the Gandhi, the Da Vinci, the other
Socrates, Plato, everyone, the greatest thinkers.
Exactly. And it looks like you wanted to say
No,
something.
no, I'm waiting for you to finish.
Yeah.
I got something. But if you're done,
Yeah.
I just want to say the way that Dr. Herman has it in the program, it's like I can because going into it, if I hadn't known about it, I would have been like, great, he's going to sit here and lecture us. And, no, the way the interactiveness of it and the way he presents it, it keeps the mind going. And, the mind's like, ooh, what was it? Wait a minute. And, because like I've done a lot of different stuff. And I can remember key things from it, but it didn't resonate with me. What we just experienced there, 90% of it is still resonating with me. Other programs, 20 minutes after, I've only got maybe one or two things, maybe 5% of it.
Because it's not about the information again, it's about the experience. One thing also that you did, I think it also, it's actually in many spiritual traditions, for example, in the spiritual tradition, in the Islamic tradition, and I think in other faiths, there is a saying, if you know yourself, you know your Lord. Right. And knowing the Lord, meaning that the source of life, it's achieving a high level of consciousness. And some of the exercises that you did were actually aiming at making us know ourselves, making how we think, right? Understanding how I think about something, how I define something, and then we take that definition. Sometimes you don't know how you think, because I think that's another problem with us. Right. A lot of the times we don't know ourselves, and we don't know how we think. Right? We don't know how we look at things, and sometimes we need some training in order to be able to understand how our brain functions. Yeah. And once we know how we think, we can do something with it. We can make it better, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. That's going back to the system of interconnectivity. What you said is perfectly stated. It actually relates to our last show with Professor Tom Dolan, where we were talking about religion, the system of religion, and changing society. It's not the system needing to change; it's the target. In certain situations, it's the opposite. But so back then, you said, be the change you want to be in the world. And here you're talking about with spirituality, know yourself, and then you'll know your Lord. In the system of interconnectivity, if you look at different things that surround us every day, the physics of this light, the sound waves that are going on, the physics and the resonance behind that, the atmospherics and psychology, the variables that make up this atmosphere right now, they're attracting us, they're attracting your listeners, or not attracting us and not attracting your listeners. They're having an impact on a target. And all these different principles and universals, they're all related. They've been said for millennia, as you rightfully said. This is not completely novel. However, sadly, unfortunately, the practice of it is very novel. People don't think this way. Most people who live and die on this planet will not see these things, and they won't even be able to begin to see these things. However, if you see the universality of spirituality and psychology and law enforcement or PSYOP, military operations, or entrepreneurship, or whatever, it it doesn't matter what you use and it doesn't matter what you want to do with it. You'll see that there are connections, and if you master being able to find those connections on the bottommost layer where you can't go any deeper, you'll see, oh yeah, we accomplished this achievement in spirituality, we accomplished this achievement in psychology, in entrepreneurship, and it was all based on the same concept that was developed by this guy or this girl 1,000 years ago, and that's why he was one of the greatest thinkers, because he developed this concept of rule or algorithm or whatever, and it was applicable in your field, in my field, in your field, and that is what creates the greatest thinkers. And that, unfortunately, is not how people are taught today. They're taught to do the exact opposite, and it immediately stifles their potential and our entire global society's potential.
And speaking of law enforcement, Steve, you have a background in law enforcement. It's really in a society. Sometimes, some societies, some people, they might have a problem sometimes with law enforcement when it's a law enforcement person is someone who has some authority over people, and when they don't have this holistic vision, sometimes they can do more harm than good.
Yes.
So it's really critical, right? Especially
Very critical, because it sometimes, now I know from personal experience, I'm focused, okay, and it's my way or no way, and that other person could be like, hey, so by having the holistic vision, like what I just saw, it's like, okay, then wait a minute, stop, assess, and let's make it so we can diffuse this and make it as painless as possible instead of, all right, let's go, and you put them on the ground and you got them instead of like, let's talk, walk away. And and more, unfortunately, it's going to that, let's go.
And one other question that came up, I think, is how do you change people, if we want to put it this way? Yeah? That relates also to other previous conversation about religion and world peace, but it's not only about religion. It's about, as we said, law enforcement. How can you a person who is like a police officer, how can you make them able to handle situations, not be blinded by prejudice, for example, and do the right thing at the right times, for example, something like that? How do you change people who are, for example, when we were talking about how to change people, we were talking about also problems with religion. How do you change people with extremist mentality?
Right.
You spoke about sometimes, which is also interesting, it's true, sometimes you can plant a seed in a person, someone who is so narrow-minded. Maybe one thing you can do is plant a seed, but also sometimes you want to realize that maybe some people are not willing to change. I mean, that's something that you said, and some people might feel a little bit desperate. I mean, does it mean that some people will not change or are not capable of changing?
Yeah, I hate to say this, and I deeply wish that I could not say this, but it is what it is, whether you admit it or not. If someone is just so, using your words, rightfully said, narrow-minded, you're not going to be able to do much. I mean, you can give them all the information, but if they're shut down, there's nothing that's going to happen. Because just with any problem, if you're an alcoholic or an addict to anything that's a vice, or if you want to be better with yourself, if you don't see that there's a problem first, you won't be able to change it. And that's one good example of a universal right there that works in every landscape. If you don't see a problem, you won't be able to change it. You'll think that if you're doing wonderful right now, you won't think to change it because you're saying, well, I'm doing wonderful, I don't need to do anything else. So going back to your question, sometimes you can't do anything. You just need to plant the seed if you want. Many times some people walk away. And this is a question that I asked the linguist Dr. Noam Chomsky. In my opinion, he's the greatest linguist in all of linguistics history. I really admire him. So he and I talked through email a few times, and I asked him a question that was very similar to this. I said something like, we were talking about the world, because he has a very famous quote that I used in my second book. Actually, I asked for his permission. And he said, not only do people not know what's going on, they don't even know that they don't know. And we were talking through email, and I said, why do people like us, I don't mean that egotistically or anything, but people who are trying to help others, why do we even bother? Sometimes it's like, why? Because you try to give the information and help, but they actually fight you, saying, you know, this is wrong or we shouldn't do that. You have to be very specific. What's this generality, this holistic vision or anything? Because they don't see things properly. And he came back with a beautiful answer. He said, it may seem like Sisyphean labor, but it's the right thing to do. So going back to your point, yeah, you're right. Sometimes you can't change anyone. You shouldn't force to try and change anyone. But if you so choose, you can at least do, you know, as Dr. Noam Chomsky says, you know, plant the seed is the right thing to do. So hopefully, next day or 10 years from now, that person will come around and see things. And we're always trying to improve as well. So hopefully we will also see things differently and continually divorce ourselves. Because as I said in the program, the most important thing you can do in your life is divorce. Just constantly divorce yourself from every idea, every situation. As you said, every conversation, every issue as a cop or an entrepreneur, whatever, and see things from different aspects, different angles. Get the holistic vision and then do whatever you need to do.
So I think I'll try to take away a few lessons here before we conclude, and correct me if I'm wrong. So let's try to, in our short conversation. So one thing is, if you don't know there is a problem, you won't try to fix it. So one thing is knowing that we can do better.
Right.
And that's the people that seek self-improvement, that
Yes.
try to go to training. So I think that's one takeaway. The other takeaway is the idea of divorce. I think it's important. And I think it's important to fight prejudice in our world, to fight our own issues.
Yeah.
Because when we divorce, we can actually do better. When we divorce our, existing mindset, our existing beliefs, even in a job, if you divorce where you are now, try to get out of it, then you can actually do better. Otherwise, you'll stay where you are.
Absolutely.
And so that's another takeaway. So try to divorce yourself from your existing belief, existing self.
Yes.
So that's, I think, another takeaway that we can conclude with. Another thing is information itself doesn't matter. It's not the amount of information.
Correct.
Right? It's the tools that you have
Correct.
to use this information and how to get to the foundation of a problem.
Yes.
To the foundation.
Absolutely. And if I may, real quick,
Yeah.
thank you. There are many times when I'm called in to do consulting. I do training and consulting. So for the people or the entities that don't have time to go through the training and do holistic vision, they'll come in and say, okay, just come in and consult with us, use your holistic vision and help us solve our problems. So those times, I don't know their industry. Sometimes I know nothing about their industry, and this has happened many times. I don't have their expertise, so I don't have their quantity of information,
Right.
their quality of information, but that doesn't matter. I have the tool of holistic vision, and I use that tool to see past things that they couldn't even see before. So because of what you just rightfully said, it's not the quantity of information, it's how you use it, and it's the tool to go beyond that information. So that's the only reason why I'm able to, and anyone who has holistic vision, go into an atmosphere that they're naive to and still come out and excel beyond the experts that are in that atmosphere.
And another takeaway, actually, now that you're talking about some companies that see consulting, for example, one key thing is when you know there is a shortcoming, when you seek consulting, I think that's something to praise, because I've seen in my own career, I've seen companies that are so fixated, for example, bad culture, employees are suffering,
Yeah.
and if you look at for example, the owners or the executives, they think there's no better, there is no way we can do better. That's what that's the best we can do.
Yeah.
So they don't actually seek help, because they don't know there's something wrong.
Correct.
And I believe these entities, whether it's a company, whether it's a government, they go downhill.
Yeah.
And especially in our world, it's very competitive. So I think one other thing is, whether you're a person or you're an entity, company or a government, seek help. Because if you just think that you know it all, you're gonna fail.
Yeah.
And you're gonna fail badly.
Exactly.
But if you know that you're missing something, even if you don't realize that you're missing something, just by seeking external help, you consult with someone, you bring someone who's an expert. Okay, come and look at what I have.
Yes.
Tell me where the problems are. Even though
Yes.
if I don't, I think companies that continually do that will succeed. People that continually do that will also succeed. Over those that just accept the status quo and think
Absolutely.
that it cannot be any better than where we are now.
Absolutely. The companies and even the people, the individuals, the companies that actually hire people and keep people on staff to do nothing except constantly look at the systems and constantly improve, and that's their entire job. They're the ones that are going to always find the novel process efficiency, novel cost cutting, novel human maximization of human capital, social capital, all those different things. They're the ones that are going to be, the Googles, the Apples of the world. And with individuals, if you just do it yourself, you don't have to hire anyone. But if you know these things and you just do it yourself, you're going to be the one that's always performing better. So
Sure.
you said it perfectly.
Yeah. And I think on an individual level, sometimes if you can't afford, having like a high level
Right.
trainer or coach,
Right.
you do it yourself. But as we know, like top paid CEOs, for example, they pay a lot for programs, for coaching.
Yeah.
So I think everyone on their own, within their capacity, they should seek this coaching, whether it's in a book. If you can pay, you pay for something, for a premium. If you're an executive, you have your company pay for consulting. But I think that the main goal is, wherever you are within your own capacity, look for this kind of coaching. Do it yourself if you don't have the resources. But if you can, have someone else do it for you, help you do it. But the key is to not be happy where you are and know that there could be a better way to be and to do things.
Yeah, don't be stagnant. Always look to grow. I mean, I feel I strongly feel that that's a mission amongst humans. Just constantly grow yourself, companies, whatever. You should always constantly grow to advance the population, starting with yourself, as we said in the other show.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, thanks so much. Any last words from any of you?
If you guys don't mind, I'd just like
Sure.
to put a little plug out there for
Yeah.
where we're at. Bodyworks for Vets here in Skokie for allowing us the use of the wonderful
Absolutely.
space here.
Yeah.
I just want to get that out there.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So-
Yes.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Dr. Herman.
Thank you.
And hopefully we'll get more time and more interviews, because there is so much to talk
Yes.
about
Yes.
in many areas of life.
Yes, definitely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mostly the root cause, like some people say, is where you want to go. And that's where you solve the greatest issues, not anything that's superficial, what they call a band-aid. They're going to say, okay, Leonard, you were a coder, you're a website coder, you have 500 lines of code, it works beautifully, you save the company $1 million. However, I came up with something that's only 5 lines of code. So why is that important? Well, now immediately we have less money going into maintenance. We have less money going into researching that thing and seeing how we can improve upon it. We have efficiency, thank you. We have efficiency created right there. Also, if Leonard created that first 500 lines of code and Steve comes in and he's got 5, immediately I'm gonna go to Steve next time. Now you just lost an opportunity of whatever. Something that can lead to grander raises, something that can lead to grander opportunities, whatever. You lost it because you couldn't see something. You were correct, but you didn't see it all the way through. You didn't see the baseline, the foundation of the issue.